Hello, Gman. I just thought I would take a few minutes to respond to your video entitled "Most Atheists, You Have No Empathy, They Hate Christianity." Pro tip, by the way: go back to grammar school. You really need to learn your grammar. That's really atrocious. I'm not entirely surprised, though. I've seen you on the Drunken Peasants. I've seen you. I've seen a few of your videos already. It's not that surprising that you would have such bad grammar. But I suppose more concerning than your grammar is your conclusion, which I have a huge problem with. And I'll get to it in a few minutes. But first, let's let Megyn Kelly lie for Fox News.
Well, the people behind the museum at Ground Zero are sticking to their symbol, defending the display of the steel cross found at Ground Zero in their museum, and now asking a judge to toss out a lawsuit that is demanding that cross be removed from the museum. This is the unforgettable image found in the wreckage from that horrible day. Steel beams, shaped like a cross, an inspiration in the middle of a tragedy. The steel cross is part of the September 11th Memorial Museum, but a national atheists group has sued the museum, calling the display of this figure unconstitutional. Joining me now, David Silverman, the president of America.
Well, let's look at why it might be unconstitutional. Forgive me, G-Man, I'm about to bring in facts. I'm about to bring in the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. The First Amendment to the United States Constitution prohibits the making of any law respecting an establishment of religion, impeding the free exercise of religion, abridging the freedom of speech, or infringing on the freedom of the press. Well, actually, let's go get the actual quote. I know that's a bit sloppy, what I was just doing. So, let's go ahead and log into Wikipedia here. Get the actual text. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or of the right of the people to peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. It's very blatant. It's very clear, G-Man. You cannot have a law or any sort of state-funded institution promoting religion. Now, this is a cross. Okay, it is a cross. It is a symbol of Christianity. Fundamentally, there's no removing that fact. Now, I know Megyn Kelly wants to. That's why she referred to it as figure rather than cross. Because she wants to pretend that this isn't some sort of religious icon, that this represents some sort of American, catastrophe. And September 11th was an American catastrophe. But the problem with this, G-Man, is that it is a cross. It's a religious symbol. Well, no matter how it was formed, okay? Damn cat. No matter how it was formed, it is a religious symbol. Now, granted, you could probably find any two pair of, steel girders arranged perpendicular to one another, but it's a religious symbol. And that's the problem, okay? You cannot have that funded by state money unless you give equal representation. Now, of course, you might say, as I think Megyn Kelly's about to, oh, but there was no artifact found of atheism or Islam. Okay, that just simply means that you can't display it. Now, if the people who lost loved ones on September 11th want to cry about that, okay. But there's other groups that will cry about it. You want to know who else is going to cry about it? The Muslims that died on September 11th. And before you say something stupid and assume that I'm only talking about the hijackers, I'll have you know there were Muslims that worked in the World Trade Center. There were Muslims who had a mosque inside the World Trade Center. There were Jews in the World Trade Center. There were atheists. There were probably Buddhists and Hindus and every religion you can imagine in that World Trade Center. And to have them be forced to have their memory respected by a cross, a symbol of a religion they did not follow, and that some of them may have actively been opposed to, is itself lacking in empathy. Okay, you want to talk about how atheists lack empathy, G-Man. It is you and your side that lacks the empathy, because you want to have all of these people that were killed in this horrible attack who didn't follow that religion represented by a symbol of your religion. Okay? That's pretty damn wrong, to be honest. I don't know any way to put it better. It's just wrong. Okay? It's wrong. It's unconstitutional. And no matter how you twist it, no matter how you distort it, it's not going to be anything but wrong and unconstitutional. Okay? Now, I'll get back to the rest of your conclusion here. I want to let Megyn Kelly continue speaking. I want to see what she has to say here.
American Atheists, and afterward we'll be joined by a 9/11 family member. David, welcome back to the program. So now the museum has moved to dismiss your lawsuit, which you and I talked about right after you filed it, saying your biggest problem is they are not a state actor. They're a museum. And it's not their job to make sure all faiths are represented in their museum. It's their job to chronicle history, and this is part of history.
Well, this is actually a public museum on public land funded by public funds. And when we look at the 9/11 event, we see an event that captured the hearts and minds of all Americans equally. It wasn't a Christian event, but they're taking this opportunity to put in a 17-tall steel monument to Christianity in a public museum funded by public money in a religious ceremony by a priest who consecrated the public ground, and they have the gall to say that this is not a religious event. Well, we differ. American atheists have just as much ownership of this museum as everybody else.
Forgive me, I just had a bit of a cough there.
Just as much ownership of this museum as everybody else. A lot of atheists died on 9/11, and we demand equal representation.
But you did not have a symbol that was found in the wreckage of Ground Zero. I mean, if there had been, I know one of your demands has been maybe put up a giant A in the museum. If such a relic had been found in the midst of the rubble, they would likely display it, but none was.
No, that's because there are no symbols of atheism. There are symbols of Christianity in the shape of crosses. Everybody knows the cross is a symbol of Christianity, and everybody also knows the World Trade Center was assembled out of cross beams, and hundreds of those cross beams survived the fall. That does not give Christianity the right to usurp the rest of the nation and to have a memorial solely to itself in our national memorial.
But is it a memorial, or is it an artifact of what was found?
Well, of course it's a memorial. The entire frickin' museum is a memorial. Yes, it's about history. But so what? That doesn't really matter. That's, the whole point of building this museum was to honor the event, to honor the people that died on it, to honor the people who went in and tried to save lives, the first responders, and, to raise our middle fingers collectively to the terrorists who did it. Okay, that was the point of it. And I understand that you might argue, oh, well, that cross, it does exactly that. It raises the middle finger to the terrorists. Well, maybe it does, but as I said, it also raises the middle finger to all of the people who died on 9/11 that weren't Christians. They don't want to be represented by, well, of course I don't know what they want because they're dead, but they probably wouldn't have wanted to be represented by a cross, okay? Let's put in a little bit more, and then I'm just going to respond directly to your quote. A little bit more. We'll wait until the guy from the 9/11 family comes on.
In the rubble after 9/11, and the place that many folks went to gather, not just pray, but also meditate.
It's an artifact only because it's religious. It is a piece of scrap metal, and the only artifact from it is the fact that people prayed over it. It is a religious icon. It has been deified. Jesus has been carved into the top of it. It is a religious icon. Everybody knows it's a religious icon. And frankly, we find the assertion that it's not religious to be insulting to our intelligence and to everybody else.
So if a church had been destroyed right next to the Twin Towers on 9/11, and the altar was found amidst the rubble, and they wanted to put that altar in the museum. Would you have a problem with that?
No, actually that would be a piece of history. This is just a steel girder that has been turned into an icon aftermarket, after the event, by Christians who wanted to get this installed in the memorial to the exclusion of everybody else. And I want to make something clear, Megan. We are not demanding that the cross be removed. We are demanding equal representation.
I know.
The cross
You want
stay.
a big A. You want a big
We
A in
want
the middle of the
something,
museum.
and we will pay for it, but they will not allow us because of bigotry.
You also claim that this is causing emotional distress to you and other atheists and
Well, okay. Maybe he can't... Well, you know what? Why wouldn't it be causing distress to some people? Maybe not atheists, okay? Maybe not necessarily just atheists. Suppose, Gman, that you were a Muslim. And suppose that your son was in the World Trade Center that day and was killed. And you believed firmly that he was up in, paradise with Allah and Muhammad and all the angels, and, that Jesus wasn't really the Son of God, but rather just a prophet. Suppose you believed all of that. And then the American government took this cross, a clear Christian symbol, which, by the way, G-Man, I have to explain something to you. In Islam, it's considered blasphemy in Islam to say that God has a son. Okay? So you would believe that it is blasphemy to say that God has a son. Okay, you would believe that if you were a Muslim. So they take this cross, which represents that belief system, and use it to honor your son. Okay? They use it to represent his memory, or at least as part of something that represents his memory. Would you not be offended by that? Would you not be kind of pissed off if somebody took, a religious symbol that didn't represent your faith, that was actually considered blasphemous to your faith, and used it to represent your dead son? You'd be furious. You would have mental distress. I love the way she mocks and ridicules these people for having mental distress. This just goes back to what I was saying earlier. You say atheists have no sympathy, or no empathy. You and her have no empathy whatsoever for everybody else. Okay? I'm running low on time. I can only post 15-minute videos, unfortunately. So I'm going to just have to stop it here. I might revisit this in another video. So let me just close with a final remark here. Number one, saying most atheists have no empathy, even if it were true that this particular atheist had no empathy, is just a complete fallacy. It's just... it's terrible. It's terrible reasoning. You have confused one guy and his group for all of us. I'm an atheist. I have empathy. Well, technically I'm a Satanist, but I have empathy. The Amazing Atheist is an atheist. He has empathy, I'm sure. There's plenty of atheists out there. You've lumped us all in with this one group, even if it was true that they lacked empathy, which, again, they don't. Secondly, they don't necessarily hate Christianity. Now, I do. I think Christianity is a barbaric religion, just as bad as Islam, in a lot of ways. But, that's not my beef with the cross. My beef is a constitutional issue here, just as this guy's beef is. Now, I would argue it should be removed. It should be. It shouldn't be in there. It's taxpayer-funded religious establishment, which is blatantly unconstitutional. And that doesn't mean that they hate Christians either, by the way. That's important to point out. I guess I have to end here because I'm at 14:37, so that's all I have to say for now.